Hey, it's Adam Grant from Work Life, a podcast from TED. This episode is brought to you by Freshworks. Freshworks believes that complexity is the enemy of efficiency. So stop wrestling with bloated, expensive service software that takes forever to implement an update, where ROI is someday, not today. You've been overcharged and underserved for way too long. Uncomplicate with Freshservice for IT and Freshdesk for customer support. And with Freshworks AI-assisted service software, you'll work smarter, not harder. Freshworks uncomplicates. Learn more at freshworks.com.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Sunday 7.
I'm Trish Laverty in for Jamie East this week, and on today's episode of the award-winning Sunday 7, we find out if there really is life on Mars, what Elon's been up to, and why hot weather makes us consume more sugar. Plus, Will Guyatt, the Smart 7's resident tech guru, gets excited about Apple's new launches and celebrates Super Mario Bros. 40th birthday. If you're enjoying our episodes, please do like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We're here 7 days a week at 7 a.m. with the 7 biggest stories on the Smart 7 in association with Metro. Before we get started though, it was on this day in 1830 that the Liverpool to Manchester railway line was officially opened. It was built by George Stephenson, who was also largely responsible for inventing the railroad locomotive called the Rocket. 600 people were transported on the line for the first trip, with 7 locomotives, each of which pulled 4 carriages, but there's no word on whether or not there is a snack trolley. After a crazy news week, you might be relieved to hear that there might be another option if life on Earth is just too stressful. NASA has discovered what they think are signs of life on Mars. NASA has been through a challenging few months as long-time Administrator Bill Nelson stepped down at the end of President Biden's term, and temporary Administrator Janet Pelto also left this summer. Donald Trump's Transportation Secretary and former MTV reality star Sean Duff is now the acting administrator, and he was keen to be front and centre for what could be a major announcement.
A year ago, we thought we found what we believe to be signs of microbial life on the Mars surface. And so we put it out to our scientific friends to pressure test it, to analyze it, and go, did we get this right? Do we think this is signs of ancient life on Mars? And after a year of review, they've come back and they said, listen, we can't find another explanation. So this very well could be the clearest sign of life that we've ever found on Mars.
We're not talking about actual Martians yet, but the Mars Perseverance rover has observed unusual rocks which have markings that could only be caused by chemical reactions from ancient Martian microbes. Dr. Nicky Fox is an associate administrator from NASA's Science Mission Directorate, and she explained what they found and how they analysed it.
Last July, NASA's Perseverance rover found a leopard-spotted rock at Mars. And scientists immediately knew. It was interesting, we hadn't seen anything like that before on Mars. And we talked about it last summer. The moment we found it, we put out the images for everybody to see and everybody to share in the joy of NASA science. And today, we're really here celebrating that incredible hard work of the science team as they literally tried to prove it wasn't interesting. Maybe it's just something else. Maybe it's not, the key result that we've been waiting for. And so they've done the analysis on these leopard spots, and we think they are potentially made by some sort of ancient life. This finding by our incredible Perseverance rover is the closest we've actually come to discovering ancient life on Mars. And if you can't tell, we're really excited about that.
Joel Hurowitz is a planetary scientist at Hurowitz University and member of the Perseverance team. He says that there's no question the leopard-spotted rocks could be hugely important.
These textural features told us that something really interesting had happened in these rocks. Some set of chemical reactions occurred at the time they were being deposited. And so we really wanted to understand what those reactions might have been. This sort of combination of mud and organic matter that has reacted to produce these minerals and these textures is that when we see features like this in sediment on Earth, these minerals are often the byproduct of microbial metabolisms that are consuming organic matter and making these minerals as a result of those reactions.
The next challenge is to bring some of the rock samples back to Earth, something that could be pretty challenging in terms of cost. But as NASA's science team explains, they've pretty much reached the limit in terms of what the rover can do.
We really used every scientific instrument available to us on the payload to investigate these rocks and really try to paint as complete a picture as we can of what these rocks are made of.
It's been another busy week in tech as Apple finally rolled out some innovation in their new iPhone. Google's AI turned out to be not quite as self-sufficient as you might think, and two famous plumbers celebrated a big birthday. There's only one man we have on our emergency contact list, and that is the Smart 7's tech guru Will Guyatt. Hey Will, so this week saw Apple try something new, right?
They did, and by my reckoning it was the 21st time Apple have done one of these big product reveals, so naturally the hype's not as big as it used to be. But it was a nice surprise to see the iPhone Air appear, a brand new line in the smartphone range that's just pushed through the 3 billion phones sold since first launching in 2007.
The Air genuinely does look like a new kind of iPhone. What are the best new features?
The Air has been rumoured for a long while, and it is sufficiently different enough to the current iPhone range. It's the thinnest device yet at 5.6mm, and I'm already wondering how long it can survive in the ass pocket of my jeans. But to make a phone as thin as this, they've clearly had to make some compromises, and even though it's got the same level of processor as the Pro models, Apple confidently talked about an all-day battery and then mentioned they were selling an external battery pack case, which feels like we're back in 2010, and that tells me this has got a much smaller battery than the iPhone Pro Max I'm currently rocking. The space constraints in the iPhone Air mean they've had to make some interesting changes that I've got my eyes on. You've now got a single camera on the back of the device, and it looks like they've managed to pack in multiple lenses by virtue of delivering a really high resolution image and then doing some clever stuff in software.
We saw new versions of AirPods too, which can do live translations. Does that actually work?
I've always been a fan of the AirPod Pros, so these were my first pre-order from this presentation. The live translation feature looks like the type of thing Tomorrow's World dreamt about in the 1980s, and exactly the kit you need to find out what a bunch of Italian fishermen really think about you and your holidaymaker ways. It's essentially listening to and translating in real time via Apple Intelligence into your ear, and also when you speak, it'll pick up what you're saying and display your questions to those Italian fishermen on your screen. Android fans will of course say there's been something like this operating on Samsung's premium Galaxy devices for the last couple of years, but given so many more of us rock iPhones globally, it's going to be interesting to see how this rolls out and whether people really use it or it's just a feature that's generated press attention. There's one feature of the AirPod Pros I'm actually more hyped about. Apple are promising twice the noise cancelling from its previous models, which might finally see them totally replacing the Bose and Sony headphones in my tech armoury.
One thing that seems to need more work than we realised is Google's Gemini. What did The Guardian report on this week?
This may have been broken as a story about Google Gemini, but the reality is most of the AI chatbots, which we believe are getting closer and closer to some kind of sentience or intelligence, are still just parroting a vast army of underpaid and overworked humans who are responsible for what tech companies call training. Many of us might call that hoovering up as much content from the internet as possible as you can before laws change. But on top of this, you now have humans manually checking that a chatbot's responses are safe for users, and thousands of humans are now using their intelligence to teach chatbots how to behave and respond, correcting mistakes, and then even stopping them from delivering harmful content. This Guardian story has the case of a woman who found herself responsible for stopping Google's Gemini from generating sexually offensive text and content, despite being recruited as a generalist rater for its products. What made it worse is that she had strict tasks split into 10-minute blocks through the day and was rated on her performance removing this content. This sounds bleak. This
sounds similar to the Amazon store that turned out to be the real-life Indian workers watching CCTV. Is big tech lying to us?
It's true that the AI reality many tech companies peddle is not even close to prime time, and in order to get funding and support from investors, or at least a position of being perceived a leader, is enough for some tech companies. And Amazon did famously get caught for having thousands of workers in a building somewhere thousands of miles away, poring over hours and hours of footage to ensure its cameras and sensors were picking up every item that was being purchased in their cashierless stores. Then there's the insane story of a UK AI company called Builder.ai. It was backed by Microsoft and it attracted almost $500 million of investment. It was claimed that the company's assistant Natasha could build apps 6 times quicker than traditional development and be 70% cheaper. And that's surely a win, right? The boss of the company was so confident, he even changed his job title to Chief Wizard. Well, it all fell apart earlier this year when it became apparent that Natasha was in fact 700 contract workers in India and was in fact just offshoring development of apps, not using AI. The developers were even tasked and rated on behaving like robots. This won't be the last we hear of fake AI.
And Denmark reckons its local drug dealers are busy on Snapchat. What's going on?
A respected research agency has accused Snapchat of letting an overwhelming number of drug dealers operate on its platform, with children able to buy substances like cocaine, opioids and MDMA. While Snapchat says it uses technology to remove profiles, the research appears to clearly demonstrate a failure to remove accounts with drug-related terms in usernames. They also say that Snapchat isn't responding to reports of profiles openly selling drugs. The researchers found 40 accounts operating in Denmark and reported them all, but only 10 were removed. The other 30 reports were rejected. Now, Snapchat of course disagrees and say that they've disabled 30 of them proactively and had now removed them all. But perhaps the most troubling element of this research is that it appeared to demonstrate that those with profiles that sold drugs to kids were being recommended to those who had previously expressed no interest in drugs or dealers. And because one friend's account had been connected to a dealer profile, another child received 70 suspected drug dealing profiles as account recommendations. Snapchat says it's working diligently to stop drug dealers from abusing its platform and deploys proactive detection to identify and disable these accounts. But the researchers appear to see something very, very different.
Finally, I assume you have your peaked cap and overalls on for a very special 40th birthday.
I wear them most of the time, so it was absolutely no biggie at all. It's the 40th anniversary of the first Super Mario Bros. Platform game this weekend, the game that put the world's favourite plumbers Mario and Luigi truly on the map, and arguably made Mario more globally recognised than Mickey Mouse. Incredibly, Mario now features in over 200 games, and earlier this year Nintendo said over 900 million games had been sold across the Mario franchise, and around 500 million of those were in the main Super Mario series, which of course began back in 1985 and most recently saw Super Mario Bros. Wonder released on the Switch in 2023. And with Switch 2 gamers now looking to Christmas and beyond for big new games, it's highly likely Nintendo will have something Super Mario 3D related up its sleeve to reveal shortly. Let's go!
Still to come on the Sunday 7. In association with Metro, the NHS rolls out a new blood test and things heat up in Antarctica. Over 500,000 people in the UK have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, but it's quite difficult to get a definitive diagnosis. Up until now, there have only been 2 gold standard methods, either what is known as a PET scan, which gives a full picture of the brain and body, or a lumbar puncture, which can be painful and awkward. But this week saw the NHS begin a new trial of a new blood test, which could speed up diagnosis, and that would mean that treatment could begin earlier. Up to 1,000 people who've already been referred to a memory clinic will take part in the trial, and Dr. Amir Khan, Good Morning Britain's resident doctor, explained how the test and trial will work.
The test checks for a protein called p-tau217, which has been linked to changes in the brain of those living with Alzheimer's disease. Now, up until now, we've relied on PET scans and lumbar punctures for a diagnosis, but they are expensive, they're invasive, and they're not accessible to everyone. The trial will focus on over 1,000 people across the UK from different backgrounds, and it will look at whether this test offered earlier in the disease will pick up the disease and pick up a diagnosis, improve accuracy, and guide treatment.
There was bad news from Antarctica this week as one of the world's largest icebergs has begun to break up to the point which it may disappear in weeks. The megaberg, which was also known as A23A, has been around for about 40 years since it broke off the ice slab in Antarctica, was truly enormous. It weighed an estimated 1 trillion tonnes and was more than twice the size of London as recently as last year, but warm waters have seen it start to crumble and collapse. The largest floating object on Earth is currently drifting near South Georgia Island, and Ted Scambos, an ice scientist at the University of Colorado, says its days are numbered.
As summer in the southern hemisphere comes on, November, December, January, we're going to see more and more melting on this iceberg. Lots of icebergs have been in theory before, and even some ice shelves around Antarctica have gone through this process of really intense melting in the summer. And what happens is the upper part will saturate with water and then shatter because the water drives through the iceberg and cracks it into thousands of pieces. So that very suddenly it would just sort of collapse onto the ocean surface like a floating avalanche.
Still to come on the Sunday 7. In association with Metro, Elon Musk is back in the spotlight and koala bears get some help with a personal problem.
Right after this.
You know what's wild? Most people are still overpaying for car insurance just because it's a pain to switch. That's why there's Jerry. Jerry is the only app that compares rates from over 50 insurers in minutes and helps you switch fast with no spam calls or hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Before you renew your car insurance policy, do yourself a favor. Download the Jerry app or head to jerry.ai/acast.
Welcome back.
As the effects of climate change become far-reaching, we've grown accustomed to hotter summers, wetter winters, and, as we just heard, melting icebergs. But new research this week suggests a previously unforeseen side effect of a hotter climate, and that's an increase in the consumption of sugary drinks. The findings were published this week in the journal Nature Climate Change, and the research was carried out by scientists and researchers at the universities of Cardiff and Southampton here in the UK. They analysed American grocery receipts over a number of years and discovered that sugar consumption rises in the summer, driven by a thirst for sugary drinks like a can of soda or energy drinks and even sweetened fruit juices. They were also able to track an increase in consumption with each degree of temperature increase. Pen He is an environmental scientist at Cardiff University and one of the authors of the study, and she says the details of consumption are also fascinating.
The key finding are two votes. The first is that as the temperature goes higher, people tend to consume more added sugar. And the second is that there's huge difference across socioeconomic groups, particularly the disadvantaged groups, such as the low income or low education groups. They tend to have a larger response to the same level of the temperature change.
Elon Musk has disappeared from view for a while after his brief but traumatic involvement with the Donald Trump administration. He was the biggest donor to Trump's re-election campaign and went viral when his son, Little X, appeared to suggest Daddy had some kind of election machine secret. He also briefly ran Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, which then fizzled out. All that aside, Elon also has at least 3 day jobs as head of SpaceX, CEO of Tesla and chief nuisance at X, or Twitter as we used to call it. He popped up this week in an interview with the All In podcast to chat about the latest innovations from his wide range of companies, starting with news about an upgrade for Starlink, which provides satellite-based internet across the world. Elon thinks the future could see Starlink available directly on your phone.
To be clear, we're not going to put the other carriers out of business. They're still going to be around because they own a lot of spectrum. But yes, you should be able to have a Starlink, like you have an AT&T or T-Mobile or Verizon or whatever. You could have an account with Starlink that works with your Starlink antenna at home for your Wi-Fi as well as on your phone. Yeah, it would be a comprehensive solution for high bandwidth at home and for high bandwidth direct to cell.
His main job remains Tesla, and he's still in court over his 2018 pay package, but this week saw the company's board propose a new package that would potentially pay Elon $1 trillion. The deal would require Musk to drive Tesla's sales from $2 million per year to $20 million and increase the company's value to $8 trillion within the next 10 years. He's been busy talking up Tesla's new software package, FSD14, which is due to roll out soon, but he says it's just the beginning of what your Tesla will be able to do, powered by AI. One of his pet projects at Tesla are his humanoid robots known as Optimus. He says they're also making good progress, but it has been very difficult.
Right now we're struggling with the final design of the hardware. It's really primarily the hand. It's not to just dismiss the rest of the robot, but the hands inclusive of the forearm are a majority of the engineering difficulty of the entire robot.
Koalas are probably Australia's cutest animals, or technically marsupials, but they also suffer from an embarrassing personal problem. A chlamydia epidemic has been raging through Australia's wild koala population for the best part of a decade, and scientists have been struggling to deal with it across Queensland and New South Wales. Chlamydia is a sexually transmitted disease that can cause urinary tract infections, infertility, blindness, and is also fatal for koalas. The problem is that antibiotics to treat it can destroy the crucial gut bacteria that allows koalas to digest their favourite food, eucalyptus leaves. But there was good news this week as scientists finally got approval to roll out a new vaccine. Samuel Phillips is a fellow and lecturer at the University of the Sunshine Coast, and he says the vaccine is urgently needed.
Up to 50% of koalas throughout Queensland and New South Wales are infected, and this vaccine helps to limit the development of disease, which can lead to infertility in the koalas as well as blindness. So we're currently in the process of developing up to 500 doses to be ready to be rolled out at the end of this year, start of next year. But what we really need is more funding to be able to produce larger batches of vaccine to get it out to where it's needed.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Produced and published by Daft Doris.
AI is transforming customer service. It's real and it works. And with Finn, we've built the #1 AI agent for customer service. We're seeing lots of cases where it's solving up to 90% of real queries for real businesses. This includes the real-world complex stuff like issuing a refund or cancelling an order. And we also see it when Finn goes up against competitors. It's top of all the performance benchmarks, top of the G2 leaderboard, and if you're not happy, we'll refund you up to $1 million, which I think says it all. Check it out for yourself at fin.ai.